Hey, it's Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD. In my over 30 years as a physician, I have made it my goal to help you create a great life by achieving a strong mind, a healthy body, and an unshakable spirit. Today, I'd like to go over an article about the new Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine. And while I go over this, you're going to learn what my opinion is as for what vaccine I think is right for me, for you, or just for the general population. What's better? Are they good? Are they safe? Let's get to it and go over this article. I think it's a really effective article, and it points out that this third vaccine, Johnson & Johnson's one-shot regimen, adds to the COVID-19 arsenal and offers important advantages over the Pfizer and Moderna options. This is an article by Joel Zinberg, and it was just last week. The J&J vaccine just got FDA approval and is now being released to the general public for emergency use. So, as the author says, chalk up another victory for America's innovative pharmaceutical sector in the battle against COVID-19. An FDA analysis has found that Johnson & Johnson vaccine is both safe and effective, setting up a likely emergency use authorization for the product, which it has gotten already. Now, I know some of you listening are afraid of vaccines. They feel as though there may be a conspiracy behind the vaccines. But let me rest assured, let me ease your mind that these vaccines are created, yes, by scientists who work for the pharmaceutical sector, but I know a lot of scientists. I do some consulting for a medical research lab, and I know these scientists, not these particular scientists, but the ilk of scientists who goes into looking at this type of technology. And this is very solid science. This is not a conspiracy. These are people who are very dedicated to creating products that can really help people. And there's a bigger discussion about the pharmaceutical industry, which we'll tackle at another time, but not in this discussion. I want you to be rest assured that the technology and the science that went behind the creation of these vaccines is not part of a larger conspiracy to try to get you to be compliant to any type of ideology or political movement. This is solid science, and unfortunately, we were met with this bad virus, no fault of ours, but it is deadly in some people, and therefore vaccine technology, the creation of it was essential and happened at rapid warp speed, really. So going over this, as you know, this would be a third vaccine to the American market. And there are vaccines throughout the world, but the three major vaccines now from Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Moderna were created in the United States by U.S. scientists. Yes, using science, general scientific knowledge that's known worldwide, but this innovation was created right here in the United States, where I am. The J&J vaccine will not only add much needed supply, but offer some significant advantage over the other two shots. And we're going to go over just what those advantages are and what the differences are between the different vaccines. The top line number for J&J vaccine, 67% effectiveness in decreasing moderate to severe COVID-19 illness, might seem to suggest that it is inferior to the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, which seem to boast more than 90% effectiveness. But the vaccine trials are not directly comparable. This is very important. The Pfizer and Moderna trials were conducted earlier, when fewer and probably less dangerous virus variants were extant. Now, that's to say, as you've heard, that there is killer strains of COVID now that are developing from the UK and from South Africa. Well, the earlier trials, Pfizer and Moderna, was not done on populations that were even exposed to these different mutations, these mutant viruses, COVID-19 viruses. More importantly, J&J's vaccine is very effective at preventing severe illness. 77% effective in reducing cases occurring 14 days after vaccination, and 85% for cases 28 days after vaccination. This is really huge when it comes to vaccine technology. I'm going to go over in a few minutes the differences on the technology, but let's just look about general vaccinations. General vaccinations are usually done utilizing attenuated viruses. That means that you take a virus, you do something to it, and then you put it in a syringe. Well, you do something to it to make it so it's not infectious anymore. When you take out the infectious nature of that virus and put it in a vaccine, it causes the immune system to ramp up toward that virus, because even though it's not infectious anymore, it still has components that the immune system will recognize as foreign and will mount a immune response. This is immunology 101, but it's very important to understand that, because that's the basis behind different vaccinations for things like polio, very severe illnesses, smallpox. Now, we've kind of gone, I feel, in my opinion, over the top with vaccinations for all sorts of things that really are not serious illnesses. My opinion, for instance, chickenpox vaccine. But again, that is a conversation for another time. Let's focus on this vaccine now for COVID-19. This is an infection that foreign to our bodies, haven't been exposed to before, potentially deadly in some people, and therefore it is one of those, in my opinion, those illnesses where a vaccine is important. So let's continue with this article. The J&J vaccine also offers important advantages. First, it is a single dose rather than the currently required 2 doses for Pfizer and Moderna. This makes it far more likely people will sign up for it, since a single dose is less of a time commitment and can inconvenience than a 2-dose regimen. A single dose also eliminates the logistic difficulties scheduling second doses and ensuring that they are given, because that's been a logjam. The vaccine had been formulated in record time. Again, Operation Warp Speed was real. This was implemented, yes, by the Trump administration. A lot of you out there listening may have very strong opinions about Trump, but this was an infection that none of us knew about. None of us had any expertise. I don't fault, honestly, any politician, Democrat or Republican, for not knowing what the heck to do with this thing, because this was major and none of us were prepared for it. However, getting a vaccine in use within 8 months, let's say 6 to 10 months in development is unheard of. These usually take years and years going through the FDA regulatory process. It's enormous, the fact that this came out so quickly. So let's give credit where credit is due to the former administration, as well as the scientists who dedicated their careers and their expertise, putting their effort in to coming up with these innovations. The J&J vaccine is significantly less expensive than its competitors. Based on U.S. government purchases, it will cost $10 per dose. That's pretty cheap. While Pfizer comes in at $19.50 per dose and Moderna at $25 to $37 per dose. And since the latter two require 2 doses, the relative product cost of vaccination is double that, whereas only $10 for the Johnson & Johnson. So big savings, less expensive. And now we're going to go over the different technologies, which I think is for the J&J vaccine is incredible, right? The J&J vaccine utilizes a relatively new technology, an adenovirus vector, which cannot replicate or cause illness. Okay, so let's talk about that. A adenovirus vector, or a AAV, adeno-assisted vector. What is that? Well, an adenovirus is a virus which is very common in our exposure as human beings. Many of the cold viruses are adenoviruses. So what these scientists have done, and it says new technology, but this has actually been worked on for the last, I'd say probably good 10 years now. And we're going to go over the technologies and the science behind the other vaccines as well. But the adenovirus assisted vector, AAV, what it does, the scientists have inactivated the adenovirus. So it's not infectious anymore. Kind of like when you get the other vaccines, what I was talking about before, the attenuated vaccines, it inactivates those viruses so they're not infectious. And so the main parts of those viruses are introduced. A immune response your body creates an immune response. Well, in the AAV, which is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, they've inactivated, and other technologies too, which is being used for, this has been inactivated. This virus has been deactivated, if you will, and inserted is a piece of DNA, a gene. This gene codes for the protein that's the spike of the coronavirus. So what happens is this adenovirus, it's a virus like a circle. It's been deactivated, and inserted into that circle is a gene. How do viruses work? Well, the adenovirus, it was deactivated, so it can't insert its DNA into you. So a regular virus does that. It clutches on to your nose, your nasal passages inside, and what it does, it injects itself into the cell, and when it's in the cell, it injects its DNA into the nucleus of the cell, the center of the cell. So instead of injecting a virus DNA or gene into the nucleus of the cell, this is going to insert the gene that codes for the protein, which is the surface protein or the spike in the coronavirus. So once our cells now are generating that protein, because the gene, it's not being inserted, it's not doing anything to your genome, to your DNA. So don't think that we're being attacked or they're inserting chips, the scientists are inserting chips into us. No, this is not a chip. This is a piece of DNA that's been manufactured, synthetic DNA, a gene. It has all the components of a real gene, and it codes for the spike on the coronavirus. Once our cells are making that, our immune cells will attack it, will form memory cells, will form antibodies. So if we're ever exposed to it in the future, it knows to attack it. This is a technology that can be used for all sorts of ailments. There are many diseases that we know of that are due to a mutation of a gene. Let's say multiple sclerosis, for instance. People are born with a defect in the gene. There are many people, type 1 diabetes, for instance. This is a gene defect. If we could identify the gene that's coding for the abnormal gene that's causing for a dysfunctional protein, then using this technology, we can actually insert the right gene in and cure diseases. So this is a technology which has so many applications, and yet it was being, right now, we look at the coronavirus as a horrible, horrible assault on us. And yes, it was. And I have many opinions about that. And don't get me started on that. But the fact is, it hit us. And this assault hit us. And we needed to do something about it. And this has been done. And the good news, if we want to frame this in a positive way, it's now creating technologies that have been on the back burner or been investigated for 10 or so years, but nobody's had really the nerve to bring it out. Now we had to do it. It's an emergency, had to do it. And so my feeling is this technology that has gone into the J&J vaccine is going to be used for other major technologies, major diseases, and actually some cures we may see from genetic diseases that we never thought were possible. It's also the same technology that went into creating an Ebola vaccine. Remember Ebola a few years ago? Yeah, Ebola vaccine, same science behind that. So let's continue with this. As I said, it inserts genetic material, DNA, into patients' cells, instructing them to manufacture the coronavirus spike protein, which then elicits an immune response. Now, this differs from the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, which both rely on a new mRNA technology. So, an mRNA technology, this is a quick genetics lesson, right? Cells divide and they split, okay? And each cell has the genome of you. You have your genetic makeup, right? Every cell in your body, mostly every cell in your body, has exactly the same genetic makeup. The way the genes work is they code for proteins. The DNA is in the nucleus, comes out of the nucleus by messenger RNA. So it's a messenger. The RNA comes into the rest of the cell, the fluid or the cytoplasm it's called. When it's there, the DNA, the messenger RNA is a messenger. It took the code, it took the information from the DNA, brought it into the cytoplasm, and now there's a little reader that goes over the RNA. They're called ribosomes, or it goes along, and as it decodes it, and it decodes it by making it into a protein. So a messenger RNA is bypassing the gene and is actually, the messenger RNA codes directly. It doesn't go into the nucleus. It stays in the fluid. And then it codes for the same spike protein that the Johnson & Johnson is coding for, although the Johnson & Johnson may have some other variants to cover some of the mutations. And then it's released and also elicits the same immune response. So, what's better? Well, in my opinion, whatever vaccine you can get right now, if you're in a high-risk group. So if you're in a high-risk group, meaning you're over the age of, let's say, 60, and you're in or 65, you're in ill health, or you have multiple medical problems, my feeling is you get whatever vaccine you can get. If you can wait, if you're in a low-risk group, my feeling and what I'm going to do, and I'm not recommending you talk to your doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. This is my own opinion. For me, I have not gotten vaccinated yet, but when the time comes, when the J&J vaccine is available, that's what my opinion, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for that because I feel the science behind that is really solid. Not that it is not solid behind the Pfizer and Moderna, but to me it makes more sense, and the way it covers the whole coding process, which I feel is much less of a chance for something to go wrong. And I also like the way it acts as though a virus, because a virus is basically a parasite living in you, and the only way it can produce is by getting its DNA to be replicated. And so that's kind of what we need. We need this spike protein to be replicated just so it can mount a robust immune response. It doesn't stay around. This DNA is not going to stay around in your body. You're not going to have a chip in you. This is not going to monitor you. So take that off the table. Don't let that be your obstruction to protecting yourself, because I think it's important. It's a personal decision, yes. And if you're not in a high-risk group, it becomes a really personal decision, because the coronavirus in most groups has a very low mortality rate. It has a very high mortality rate in those most susceptible. So for those of you most susceptible, go out. My opinion, get vaccinated. For those who aren't and can wait, or are in a higher risk group but want to wait, the J&J vaccine, I feel, is a solid alternative, and I'm very excited that it's here, and it's going to open the door for many other applications. That I could assure you. So this is a key point, which I mentioned before, that all three could be developed, tested, and made available in hundreds of millions of doses within a year of the pandemic's onset is a testament to the power of the free market to find innovative solutions to pressing human problems. That's a loaded sentence, and one that I agree with wholeheartedly. Some of you out there may not. Some of you may have other ideas of what you think is solid, as far as the development of healthcare and science. But nothing like this, it could be done in anywhere where there are such stringent controls. And so many of those regulations had to be lifted so that we can come and deliver this technology. And it's really a testament to a lot of things. So give credit where credit is due. Okay? This is not a political thing. This is not good versus evil, good versus bad. This is something bad that hit us, and I feel something good with the vaccine technology has come from it. So I thank Joel M. Zinberg, who's a senior fellow with the Competitive Enterprise Institute and associate clinical professor of surgery at the Mount Sinai Icahn School of Medicine. He was a senior economist and general counsel at the White House Council of Economic Advisors from 2017 to 2019. And I thank Dr. Zinberg for this very insightful article. I hope you took away some pearls of wisdom. Definitely leave your comments. Let me hear from you. Let me hear your thoughts. I know I'm going to get a lot of comments about vaccines in general. This is not a commentary on that. I stuck to the science. I believe it's solid science. That's my opinion. I respect you if you have a different opinion than I do. I respect you. But leave your comments. Like, subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can be first when it comes to me releasing this type of review, because there's going to be many more coming. So until next time, I'm Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD, encouraging you to stay strong in mind, in body, and in soul. Bye for now. Dr. Charles, CoachMD. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure to like and comment below. I'd love to hear from you. If you think you have a friend who might benefit from this video, share it with them. For access to exclusive content, support my Patreon. There you'll get private access to videos, meditations, health tips, even relationship and financial tips. You'll have a say in what I produce and be able to participate in a monthly call with me. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you soon.